Blind millionaire is sentenced to pay 789 mits in court until a 7-year-old poor girl reveals the whole truth and leaves everyone in tears. Before we dive in, tap like and write where you're watching from and a song that comforts you. The gavel crashed down with a finality that echoed through the packed courtroom. Judge Maxwell Harrington's voice boomed across the stunned silence. The court finds the defendant, William Anderson, liable for damages in the amount of $789 million. Gasps rippled through the gallery. At the defense table, William Anderson remained perfectly still, his unseeing eyes hidden behind dark glasses, his hand tightening around the handle of his white cane. Only the slight tremor in his fingers betrayed his shock. "Your Honor, we request a stay of judgment pending appeal." William's attorney, James Donovan, rose to his feet, his voice strained. "Request denied," Judge Harrington replied with a coldness that sent shivers through the courtroom. "This court has heard sufficient evidence of Mr. Anderson's negligence. The judgment stands." William's face remained impassive, a skill he'd perfected since losing his sight in the explosion at his pharmaceutical company's research facility 5 years ago. The same explosion that had allegedly released toxic chemicals into the water supply of Westbrook, causing dozens of illnesses, according to the prosecution. As the courtroom began to empty, William turned his head slightly toward his attorney. "This doesn't make sense, James. Our evidence proved the contamination couldn't have come from our facility." "I know," James whispered, gathering his papers. "Someone buried our evidence." The expert testimonies, the independent lab reports, all dismissed or contradicted. It's like they had answers prepared before we even presented our case. A hand touched William's arm. "Mr. Anderson, your car is waiting," said Margaret, his assistant of 15 years. As they navigated through the courthouse corridors, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed. William moved with practiced precision, his cane sweeping before him, his face a mask of dignified composure despite the chaos. "Mr. Anderson, how does it feel to be held responsible for the suffering of innocent children? Will you sell your remaining assets to pay the victims? Is this the end of Anderson Pharmaceuticals?" In the back of his private car, William finally allowed his composure to crack. "This will destroy everything I've built, Margaret. Not just the company, but the Research Foundation, the Blindness Institute, all of it." "We'll fight this, William," Margaret said firmly. "There's something wrong about this whole case. The judge's rulings, the jury's quick decision, the way evidence disappeared. But who would want to destroy me like this?" William's voice was hollow. "And why?" Neither of them noticed the small figure watching from the courthouse steps as their car pulled away. 7-year-old Emma Clark clutched her worn backpack, her large eyes following the departing vehicle. Unlike the angry crowd, the child's gaze held no condemnation, only curiosity and something deeper, something uncomfortably close to understanding. Emma turned and walked slowly toward the courthouse cafeteria where her mother worked. As she pushed open the heavy door, she heard loud voices from inside. "A toast to justice!" Judge Harrington's distinctive voice carried across the room, "and to the most profitable case of our careers." Emma froze in the doorway, unnoticed by the adults inside, as the conversation continued. $789 million, a woman's voice laughed. "Split 5 ways, that's quite the payday. Once our dummy corporations collect as victims," another voice added. "And Anderson never saw it coming," said yet another, followed by cruel laughter. Emma slipped back out the door, her heart pounding. She didn't understand everything she'd heard, but she knew enough. The blind man was innocent, and somehow she had to tell someone. Emma Clark's small fingers trembled as she sorted through the stack of papers she'd found in the courthouse trash bin. 3 days had passed since she'd overheard Judge Harrington's conversation, and she'd spent every afternoon after school scouring the courthouse for evidence while waiting for her mother to finish work. Most of the documents made no sense to her, but she recognized Judge Harrington's name on many of them, along with unfamiliar words like offshore and disbursement. She carefully placed them in her backpack, next to the voice recorder her grandfather had given her last Christmas. In the Anderson mansion across town, William sat in his study, surrounded by technology designed for the blind. His fingers moved across a braille display as his computer read financial projections aloud. "If we liquidate the European divisions, we can cover about 30% of the judgment," said Thomas Reynolds, William's financial advisor. But there's no scenario where you keep both the company and the research foundation. One has to go." "The foundation stays," William said without hesitation. "That research is going to help thousands of blind people someday." "Then we're looking at complete corporate dissolution," Thomas replied. "Anderson Pharmaceuticals will cease to exist." The door opened, and Margaret entered. "William, there's a Detective Rivera here to see you." William's brow furrowed. "Show him in." Detective Michael Rivera was a 15-year veteran of the Westbrook Police Department with a reputation for incorruptibility. He declined William's offer of a seat. "Mr. Anderson, I'll be direct. There are irregularities surrounding your case that concern me." William turned toward the detective's voice. "What kind of irregularities?" "Financial ones, primarily. Several victims in your case show no medical records before filing their claims. And Judge Harrington recently purchased a vacation home in the Cayman Islands that seems beyond his judicial salary." "Are you suggesting the case was rigged?" William asked. "I'm not suggesting anything officially," Rivera said carefully. "My superiors have made it clear this investigation isn't welcome. Judge Harrington has powerful friends." "Then why are you here?" William asked. "Because I believe in justice, Mr. Anderson, and something about your case stinks." Rivera placed a card on William's desk. "If you find anything concrete, contact me directly." Across town, Emma sat in the school library, using a computer to search for information about William Anderson. She discovered articles about the explosion that had blinded him, about his philanthropic work, and about the research foundation he'd established to develop new technologies for the visually impaired. "What are you doing, Emma?" Miss Patterson, the librarian, appeared behind her. Emma quickly minimized the window. "Research for a project." "About Mr. Anderson." Miss Patterson's voice softened. "He used to fund our school's science program, you know, before all this trouble." "Was he a good person?" Emma asked hesitantly. Miss Patterson glanced around before leaning closer. "My brother worked at his company for 10 years, said Mr. Anderson was the most honest businessman he'd ever met. That's why this case never made sense to me." Emma's resolve strengthened. "Ms. Patterson, if somebody knew a bad thing was happening to a good person, what should they do?" The librarian studied Emma's serious face. "They should tell the truth, Emma, even when it's scary." That evening, as Emma's mother worked late cleaning the courthouse offices, Emma slipped into Judge Harrington's chambers. Heart pounding, she placed her recorder carefully behind a law book on his shelf, then hurried out. Tomorrow would be the final hearing before William Anderson's assets were frozen. Emma had one chance to gather the evidence she needed, one chance to save a man she'd never met. William Anderson's fingers traced the edges of a framed photograph on his desk, a picture he could no longer see but remembered perfectly. It showed him and his late wife Elizabeth on their wedding day 15 years ago. Elizabeth had died in the same explosion that took his sight, a loss far greater than his vision. "She would have known what to do," William murmured to the empty room. "She always saw through people's lies." The irony wasn't lost on him. The blind man who couldn't see had built a pharmaceutical empire based on seeing the truth, rigorous science, ethical testing, transparent results. Now he was losing everything because the truth had somehow been twisted beyond recognition. His phone rang with the distinctive tone he'd assigned to his attorney. James, what news? Not good, James Donovan sighed heavily. Judge Harrington has scheduled the asset freeze for tomorrow afternoon. Once that happens, we can't even pay for continued legal representation. He's moving quickly, William observed. Too quickly. This case has broken every precedent for civil procedure I've ever seen. James hesitated. William, there's something else. Our key witness, Dr. Sanderson, was found dead this morning. William's grip tightened on the phone. What? How? They're calling it suicide, but that's impossible, William interrupted. I spoke with him yesterday. He was determined to come forward with evidence that the contamination couldn't have come from our facility. I know. The timing is beyond suspicious. But without his testimony, our appeal options are severely limited. After hanging up, William sat motionless in the darkness he perpetually inhabited. Then he reached for Detective Rivera's card and ran his fingers over the raised braille numbers he'd added. At Westbrook Elementary School, Emma sat through her classes with unusual distraction. Her teacher, Mrs. Gonzalez, noticed the typically attentive second grader staring out the window. Emma, can you tell us the answer to question 5? Emma, startled. I'm sorry, Mrs. Gonzalez. I was thinking about something else. That's becoming a habit lately, Mrs. Gonzalez said gently after class. Is everything okay at home? Emma nodded. Mum's working really hard. 2 jobs now. That must be difficult for both of you. Emma's eyes filled with unexpected tears. It's not fair. Mum cleans all day, but bad people get lots of money for telling lies. Mrs. Gonzalez looked concerned. What do you mean, Emma? But Emma had already said too much. She wiped her eyes quickly. Nothing. I have to go to the courthouse. Mum's working late again. At the courthouse, Emma retrieved her recorder from Judge Harrington's office during lunch when the staff was gone. With trembling fingers, she played back the recording in a bathroom stall. Everything's proceeding as planned, came Judge Harrington's voice. Anderson's assets freeze tomorrow, then we move them through the shell companies. What about Rivera? Asked another voice. He's been asking questions. Leave the detective to me, Harrington replied. 1 word about his brother's drug case, and he'll back off. And Sanderson? No longer a problem. The ME will rule it suicide by tomorrow. Emma's hand flew to her mouth to stifle her gasp. This was worse than she'd imagined. Much worse. As she left the bathroom, she collided with a tall man in the hallway. Careful there, young lady, Detective Rivera said, steadying her. Emma looked up at him, suddenly recognizing him from the news. The detective's kind eyes surveyed her tear-stained face. Are you lost? He asked. Emma made a split-second decision. No, but I think you are. You're looking for the truth about Mr. Anderson's case, aren't you? Rivera's expression shifted from concern to surprise. What do you know about that? I know Judge Harrington is lying. I know Mr. Anderson didn't do anything wrong. She clutched her backpack tighter. And I can prove it. Judge Maxwell Harrington leaned back in his leather chair, swirling an expensive bourbon as he gazed out at the Manhattan skyline from his penthouse apartment. At 62, he had presided over the Westbrook Judicial District for nearly 2 decades, building a reputation for harsh sentences and unwavering judgments. Few knew that reputation was built on carefully selected cases, ones that either bolstered his public image or, more importantly, his offshore accounts. His phone rang. The caller ID showed Lawrence Pembroke, CEO of Pembroke Pharmaceuticals, Anderson's chief competitor. Is it done? Pembroke demanded without preamble. Tomorrow afternoon, Harrington confirmed. Anderson's assets freeze and the settlement corporations begin collection proceedings immediately. And there's no way to trace them back to me? 3 layers of shell companies, all registered in different countries. Even if someone suspected, they'd never prove it. Good, Pembroke said. Anderson's blindness research was getting too close to a breakthrough. Once we acquire his patents in the liquidation, we'll bury them. The real money is in treatment, not cures. Harrington took another sip of bourbon. What about the detective, Rivera? My contact at the department says he's been reassigned. Apparently, he has a brother with a pending narcotics case. Amazing how cooperative people become when family is involved. After hanging up, Harrington reviewed the documents for tomorrow's hearing. Everything was in order. By this time tomorrow, William Anderson would be ruined, and Harrington's account would be richer by $75 million. His share of the settlement money that would be diverted through fake victim claims. Across town, Detective Michael Rivera sat in his car, listening intently to a small voice recorder. His expression darkened with each passing minute. "That's everything I found," Emma said from the passenger seat, her legs dangling above the floor. "Judge Harrington and those other people are stealing Mr. Anderson's money." Rivera removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "Emma, do you understand how serious this is? These people are dangerous. Dr. Sanderson is already dead." Emma nodded solemnly. "That's why we have to stop them. My mom always says that doing nothing when bad things happen is the same as doing the bad things yourself." "Your mother sounds like a wise woman," Rivera said, reaching a decision. "I need to get you somewhere safe while I take this to people I trust. Do you have family you can stay with?" "My grandma lives in Queens. Mom is working late cleaning the courthouse tonight." "I'll take you to your grandmother and explain everything to her. Then I'm going to contact someone at the FBI. This is beyond local jurisdiction now." As they pulled away from the curb, neither noticed the black sedan that began following them. In his home office, William Anderson was on a conference call with his legal team, discussing last-ditch efforts to delay the asset freeze. "Without Sanderson's testimony, we have nothing concrete to prove tampering," James Donovan was saying. William's other phone buzzed. "Hold on, James, I have another call." He switched lines. William Anderson speaking. "Mr. Anderson, this is Detective Rivera. We haven't much time. I have evidence that Judge Harrington conspired with Lawrence Pembroke to frame you." William's heart raced. "What kind of evidence?" "Recorded conversations, financial documents, and a witness, though I can't say more about that over the phone." "We need to meet immediately." "My house is being watched," William said. "I can feel them out there." "The Botanical Gardens, then. The Orchid House. 1 hour." William hung up and addressed his waiting legal team. "I need to go out. No, don't argue. This may be our only chance." Margaret drove him to the Botanical Gardens, her eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. "Are you sure about this, William?" she asked as she guided him toward the entrance. "It could be a trap." "If it is, what more can they take from me?" William replied. "I've already lost Elizabeth, my sight, and tomorrow I lose everything else." Just be careful," Margaret said, pressing his arm. "Call me when you're done, and I'll pick you up at this exact spot." Inside the humid orchid house, William used his cane to navigate between rows of exotic flowers, their scents creating an invisible map he could follow. He heard footsteps approaching. "Detective Rivera?" "Mr. Anderson." Rivera's voice was tense. "Thank you for coming. We don't have much time." "You said you have evidence?" "Yes, but first you need to know where it came from. The key witness in this case is—" A child's voice interrupted from behind William. "Me. I'm the one who found out the truth." William turned toward the small voice. "Who are you?" "Her name is Emma Clark. I'm 7 years old, and I know Judge Harrington is a bad man who's stealing your money." Emma sat on a bench in the orchid house, her feet swinging above the floor, as she explained everything to William. She described overhearing Judge Harrington's conversation, finding the documents, and placing the recorder in his office. "You did all this by yourself?" William asked, his voice gentle with disbelief. "My mom works late cleaning the courthouse," Emma replied. "I'm supposed to wait in the cafeteria and do homework, but I explored instead." William's expression softened. Though he couldn't see Emma, he turned his face toward her voice. That was very brave, but also very dangerous. These people have already hurt others who tried to expose them. I know, Emma said solemnly, but my teacher, Ms. Patterson, says that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing, even when you are scared. Detective Rivera checked his watch. We need to move quickly. The hearing is at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I've contacted an FBI agent I trust, but bureaucracy moves slowly, even with evidence this compelling. What do you suggest? William asked. A direct confrontation in open court, Rivera said. If we present this evidence publicly, they can't make it disappear. They'll never let a 7-year-old testify, William pointed out. Emma spoke up. But they don't know I exist. Nobody saw me take the recorder or the papers. William considered this. We'd need to ensure your safety, Emma, and your mother's. My mom finishes work at the courthouse at 9 p.m., Emma said. We could tell her then. I'll arrange protection for both of you, Rivera promised. In the meantime, Mr. Anderson, you should prepare your legal team. Dulan, as they finalized their plans, none of them noticed the maintenance worker who had paused near the tropical plants, his attention focused entirely on their conversation. 20 minutes after they left the botanical gardens, Judge Harrington received a call. We have a problem, the caller said without introduction. The detective has evidence, recordings from your office, and he's working with Anderson. How did he get recordings? Harrington demanded. Apparently from a child, a little girl whose mother cleans the courthouse. She planted a device in your chambers. Harrington's knuckles whitened around his glass. Find them, both of them, now. Already on it. The girl's name is Emma Clark. Her mother is Maria Clark, one of the evening cleaning staff. Bring the mother in. The girl will follow. Across town, William sat with his legal team as they listened to Emma's recordings. James Donovan's face grew increasingly grave. This is explosive evidence of judicial misconduct, conspiracy, and possibly murder, he said. But using it means putting a child at risk. We're already arranging protection for Emma and her mother, William said. Detective Rivera is handling it personally. Even so, James cautioned, these people are desperate and dangerous. They've already killed once. I won't let them hurt a child who was brave enough to stand up for the truth, William said firmly. Prepare the motions. Tomorrow, we end this. Meanwhile, Emma returned to the courthouse with Detective Rivera to meet her mother. As they walked through the quiet evening corridors, Emma suddenly froze. Something's wrong, she whispered. Mom always vacuums the 3rd floor at this time. I can't hear the vacuum. Rivera immediately reached for his weapon. Stay behind me. They found the janitor's closet empty, cleaning supplies abandoned mid-use. Maria Clark was nowhere to be found. Emma's eyes widened in fear. Where's my mum? Rivera knelt to Emma's level. I don't know, but we're going to find her. Right now, though, we need to get you somewhere safe. As they turned to leave, the elevator at the end of the hall opened. Judge Harrington stepped out, flanked by 2 large men. Detective Rivera, Harrington called, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. And you must be Emma. Your mother has been asking for you. Emma stepped closer to Rivera. Where is she? Safe, Harrington smiled coldly. And she'll stay that way, provided you give me what you took from my office. Rivera drew his weapon. That's not happening, Your Honor. You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and kidnapping. Harrington's smile didn't falter. I think you're outnumbered, detective, and outgunned. The men beside him revealed their weapons. Emma, Rivera said quietly, when I count to 3, run to the stairwell and don't stop until you reach the street. Find a police officer, anyone but these men. Understand? Emma nodded, terrified but determined. 1, 2, 3. The emergency exit door slammed behind Emma as gunshots echoed through the courthouse corridor. Tears streamed down her face as she raced down the stairs, Detective Rivera's final instruction burning in her mind. Find help. Save your mother. Tell the truth. She burst out onto the street, her small legs carrying her as fast as they could. 2 blocks away, she spotted a police car and pounded on the window. "Please help! Bad men have my mom, and they shot Detective Rivera." Officer Sarah Chen had been with the Westbrook Police Department for only 3 years, but she recognized genuine terror when she saw it. She radioed for backup immediately. "All units, possible officer down at the courthouse. Shots fired. Hostage situation reported. Suspect is..." She looked at Emma. "Who did this?" "Judge Harrington," Emma gasped between sobs. "He took my mom and shot Detective Rivera because we know he framed Mr. Anderson." Officer Chen's expression shifted from concern to disbelief, then back to professional focus. "Heavy accusation, kid. But first things first. Let's get you safe and check on Detective Rivera." In William Anderson's home, the phone rang just as his legal team was finalizing their strategy for the next day's hearing. "Mr. Anderson?" a cold voice said when he answered. "This is Judge Harrington. I believe we need to discuss terms." William's hand tightened around the phone. "What terms?" "Simple ones. You drop all investigations and accusations against me. You accept the judgment and forfeit your assets as ordered. In exchange, Maria Clark lives, and her daughter Emma remains unharmed." "Where's Detective Rivera?" William demanded. "Indisposed," Harrington replied. "Permanently, I'm afraid. A tragic case of a detective caught in crossfire while pursuing armed suspects. At least, that's what the report will say." William's jaw clenched. "If you've hurt him, or that child..." "I'm merely proposing a business arrangement, Mr. Anderson. Your money for their lives. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to transfer all evidence to my associate and sign the necessary paperwork. My clerk will send it over shortly. I want proof they're alive. You'll get a call from Ms. Clark in 1 hour. Make your decision by then." The line went dead. William sat motionless, his unseeing eyes fixed on nothing. "What is it?" James asked. "They have Emma and her mother," William said hoarsely, "and Rivera is down, possibly dead." "My God," James breathed. "We need to call the police." "Harrington said he would kill them if we did," William replied. "He wants all the evidence destroyed, and for me to sign over everything. What are you going to do?" William's expression hardened. "I'm going to save them, and then I'm going to take Harrington down." At the courthouse, pandemonium had erupted. Police cars surrounded the building, lights flashing. Officer Chen had Emma wrapped in a shock blanket in her patrol car, while SWAT teams prepared to enter the building. "You're sure Detective Rivera was on the 3rd floor?" the SWAT commander asked Emma. She nodded, still trembling. "By the janitor's closet. Judge Harrington had 2 men with guns." Inside the building, SWAT teams found blood on the 3rd floor corridor, but no sign of Detective Rivera or Judge Harrington. A building-wide search revealed nothing. "They must have moved him," Officer Chen concluded. "The question is, where?" Emma clutched the blanket tighter. "He said my mom was asking for me. They must be keeping them in the same place." "We'll find them," Officer Chen promised. "In the meantime, we need to get you somewhere safe." "No," Emma protested. "I need to be at court tomorrow. I have to tell everyone what Judge Harrington did." "That's too dangerous," Officer Chen began. "It's the only way to save my mom," Emma insisted, her young face set with determination beyond her years. "Mr. Anderson's hearing is at 2 p.m. Judge Harrington will be there. He has to be there, or everyone will know something is wrong." Before Officer Chen could respond, her radio crackled. "All units, be advised. Detective Rivera located at Memorial Hospital. Gunshot wound to the shoulder. Condition stable. He's asking for Emma Clark and William Anderson." Relief flooded Emma's face. "He's alive. Can we go see him?" "First, we need to get you to a safe house," Officer Chen said. "Then we'll contact Mr. Anderson and figure out our next move." Across town, William Anderson sat by his phone, waiting for the promised call from Maria Clark. When it finally came, the voice on the other end was shaking with fear. "Mr. Anderson, this is Maria Clark." They told me to tell you to do whatever they ask. Are you hurt? William asked. No, but they have Emma, too. Her voice broke off with a cry of pain. That's enough. Harrington's voice replaced Maria's. You have your proof. Now what's your answer? William's hand gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. I'll sign your papers, Harrington, but I want your word that they'll both be released unharmed. You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Harrington laughed. But yes, once everything is finalized, and I'm certain there are no copies of the evidence, they'll be released. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't, Harrington replied simply, but it's the only chance they have. After hanging up, William turned to his legal team. I need you to prepare 2 sets of documents, one for Harrington to see and one for the judge who will replace him tomorrow. Replace him? James asked, confused. Yes, William said, a grim smile forming on his face, because I just received word that Detective Rivera is alive and Emma is safe with the police. But you just agreed to Harrington's demands, Margaret said. I did, William nodded, because now we know exactly what he wants, and more importantly, where he's keeping Maria Clark. Dawn broke over Westbrook, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold that William Anderson would never see again. He sat in his study, surrounded by his legal team, as they finalized their strategy for the afternoon's hearing. Rivera's testimony will be crucial, James Donovan said, pacing the room. The hospital says he'll be released this morning, though he should be resting. And Emma? William asked. Is she still safe? Officer Chen has her at a secure location, Margaret confirmed. The FBI has agents with them. William nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of his desk. And what about Maria Clark? Any word on her location? Nothing concrete, James replied. But based on the background noise during the call, our security consultant believes she's being held somewhere industrial, possibly the abandoned Anderson Pharmaceuticals warehouse on River Street. The one Lawrence Pembroke tried to buy last year, William mused. Fitting. SWAT is preparing a raid, but they're moving carefully, Margaret added. They fear for Ms. Clark's safety if they go in too aggressively. William stood, reaching for his cane. We need to proceed as planned. Harrington expects me to surrender everything at 9 a.m. We'll give him exactly what he expects, a broken man ready to sign away his fortune. And then? James asked. And then we spring the trap, William said, a grim determination in his voice. I've spent 5 years in darkness, James. I've learned to hear what others miss, to sense what they overlook. Harrington and Pembroke think my blindness makes me vulnerable. Today, they'll learn otherwise. At Memorial Hospital, Detective Michael Rivera winced as the doctor finished bandaging his shoulder. You're lucky, Dr. Patel said sternly. The bullet missed any major arteries, but you should be resting, not rushing back to work. Tell that to Maria Clark, Rivera replied, carefully sliding his arm into a sling. She doesn't have the luxury of time. A knock at the door revealed Officer Chen. Detective, the FBI is here. They want to brief you on the operation. Rivera nodded, then addressed the doctor. I'll come back for a follow-up, Doc. Promise. In the hospital corridor, FBI Special Agent Diana Wells waited. At 45, she had 20 years of experience dealing with corruption cases. Detective Rivera, she greeted him. Glad to see you vertical. Walk with me. As they moved toward the exit, she continued. We've been tracking Pembroke Pharmaceuticals for months. Their sudden interest in acquiring Anderson's patents raised red flags. Your evidence is the missing piece we needed. What about the girl's safety? Rivera asked. Emma is the key witness. She's secure, Agent Wells assured him. But we have a complication. Judge Harrington didn't go home last night. He's in the wind, and so are his 2 gunmen. He'll be at the courthouse by 2 p.m., Rivera said confidently. He has to maintain appearances until the assets are officially transferred. We'll be ready, Wells promised. Every exit covered, plainclothes agents in the gallery. The moment he attempts to formalize the judgment, we move." Rivera nodded, then stopped walking as pain shot through his shoulder. "And Maria Clark? SWAT is preparing to raid 3 possible locations based on financial records tied to Pembroke's shell companies. If she's at any of them, we'll find her." At 8:55 a.m., William Anderson's car pulled up to a nondescript office building downtown. James Donovan helped him inside, where Judge Harrington's clerk waited with a stack of documents. "Mr. Anderson," the clerk said nervously, "the papers are ready for your signature." William's face remained impassive as James guided his hand to each signature line. "Is this what you wanted?" he asked the clerk. "My life's work signed away based on lies?" The clerk avoided his gaze. "I'm just doing my job, sir." "Like the guards at Nuremberg," William replied coldly. "Remember this moment. Remember you had a choice." The clerk flushed but said nothing as he gathered the signed documents. "I'll deliver these to Judge Harrington immediately." After he left, James turned to William. "Phase 1 complete. Now we wait." William's phone buzzed with a text message that his assistant read aloud. "Package delivered. Proceeding to location 3. Stand by." In a dingy room at the abandoned warehouse, Maria Clark sat with her wrists bound to a metal chair. Dried blood caked the side of her face, where one of Harrington's men had struck her the night before. "Your daughter made a big mistake," Harrington said, pacing before her. "But at least Anderson had the sense to cooperate." "Where is Emma?" Maria demanded, her voice hoarse. "Safe for now," Harrington replied dismissively. "Once the transfers are complete and the judgment is formalized this afternoon, you'll both be free to go." "You mean once you've stolen millions of dollars and destroyed an innocent man?" Maria said defiantly. Harrington chuckled. "Innocent? No one with that much money is innocent, Ms. Clark. Henderson made his fortune selling overpriced medications to desperate people." "That's not true," Maria shot back. "My brother has MS. Anderson Pharmaceuticals provided his medication for free when our insurance wouldn't cover it." "How touching," Harrington sneered. "One act of charity doesn't erase a lifetime of greed." His phone rang, and he stepped away to answer it. Maria tested her bonds again, feeling slight give in the right wrist restraint, if she could just work it a little looser. Harrington returned, his expression satisfied. "Good news. Anderson signed everything. All that's left is to formalize it in court this afternoon." "And then you'll let us go?" Maria asked. Harrington's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. I'm a man of my word." But as he turned away, Maria saw him nod slightly to one of his men, a gesture that sent ice through her veins. She redoubled her efforts to loosen the restraint, knowing that her life, and possibly Emma's, depended on it. The courtroom was packed by 1:30 p.m. News of the massive judgment against William Anderson had drawn media from across the country, and the gallery buzzed with anticipation. At the prosecution table, Lawrence Pembroke sat with his legal team, a satisfied smile playing at his lips. William Anderson entered with James Donovan at precisely 1:45 p.m., his white cane sweeping before him, his face composed. As they settled at the defense table, James leaned close. "FBI agents are in position," he whispered. "Rivera is in the back row with Agent Wells." William gave an almost imperceptible nod. "And Emma?" "Officer Chen has her in the witness anteroom. Harrington doesn't know she's here." The bailiff called for all to rise as Judge Maxwell Harrington entered. If he was concerned about the FBI presence or the impending exposure of his crimes, his demeanor didn't show it. He took his seat with practiced authority. "This hearing will come to order," he announced. "We are here to formalize the judgment against William Anderson and Anderson Pharmaceuticals in the amount of $789 million. I understand the defendant has agreed to surrender his assets." James stood. "That is correct, Your Honor. However, before we proceed, we request permission to present new evidence that has come to light since the verdict." Harrington's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. That request is denied. The trial phase is complete. Now, with all due respect, Your Honor, James persisted, this evidence pertains not to the case itself, but to serious allegations of judicial misconduct that may have affected the outcome. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Harrington's gavel crashed down. Mr. Donovan, you are bordering on contempt. The judgment stands, and I believe I can shed some light on this matter, Your Honor. All heads turned as Detective Michael Rivera stood, his arm in a sling. Behind him, FBI agent Wells and several other agents moved toward the front of the courtroom. Harrington's face darkened. Detective Rivera, you have no standing in these proceedings. Actually, I do, Rivera replied, approaching the bench. I'm here to place you under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, attempted murder of a police officer, and kidnapping. Chaos erupted in the courtroom. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment, spectators gasped, and Pembroke half rose from his seat before his attorney pulled him back down. "This is outrageous!" Harrington thundered. "Bailiff, remove this man!" The bailiff hesitated, looking between the judge and the detective's badge. "Perhaps you'd like to hear the evidence first," Rivera suggested, nodding to Agent Wells, who activated a recording device. Judge Harrington's voice filled the courtroom. "Once our dummy corporations collect as victims, we'll transfer the funds offshore. Anderson never saw it coming." Followed by another voice, Lawrence Pembroke's. "Anderson's blindness research was getting too close to a breakthrough. Once we acquire his patents in the liquidation, we'll bury them." The color drained from Harrington's face. His eyes darted to the exits, where FBI agents now stood guard. "That recording is inadmissible," he sputtered. "Obtained without a warrant." "Actually," Rivera countered, "it was obtained by a private citizen who overheard a criminal conspiracy in a public space. Perfectly admissible." "What citizen?" Harrington demanded. "Who would dare?" "I would." A small voice rang out from the back of the courtroom. The crowd parted as Officer Chen escorted Emma Clark to the front. At 7 years old, she seemed impossibly tiny in the vast courtroom, yet she walked with steady determination. "This is absurd," Harrington scoffed. "You're basing federal charges on the word of a child." "Not just her word," Agent Wells interjected. "Her evidence." "Evidence that led us to offshore accounts in your name, Judge. Accounts containing millions in apparent bribes. Evidence that connected you to shell companies set up to collect fraudulent victim payouts. And evidence that helped us locate Maria Clark." At this, Emma's head snapped up. "You found my mom. Is she okay?" "SWAT teams are moving in now," Wells assured her. "She'll be fine, Emma." Harrington's composure finally cracked. He looked wildly around the courtroom, then lunged toward a side door. 2 FBI agents intercepted him immediately, forcing him to the ground as they handcuffed him. "This isn't over," he spat as they led him away. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have connections." "Save it for your arraignment, Your Honor," Rivera said coldly. As Pembroke was similarly detained, William Anderson rose from his seat, turning toward where he had heard Emma's voice. "Emma," he called softly, "would you come here, please?" Officer Chen guided Emma to William. The blind millionaire knelt down, bringing himself to her level. "I understand I have you to thank for saving everything I've built," he said gently. Emma shuffled her feet. "I just told the truth. My mom says that's always the right thing to do." "Your mother is a very wise woman," William smiled, "and very brave, just like her daughter." 3 days after Judge Harrington's arrest, Maria Clark sat in a hospital bed, her daughter curled against her side. The doctors had treated her concussion and the cuts on her wrists from where she'd eventually broken free of her restraints. SWAT had found her stumbling through the warehouse, disoriented but alive. "You should rest," Emma said, her small hand patting her mother's arm. "Detective Rivera says you need lots of sleep to get better." Maria smiled weakly. "I've had enough rest. What I need is to understand how my 7-year-old daughter ended up in the middle of all this." Emma ducked her head. "I was just trying to help Mr. Anderson. The judge was saying mean things about him, and I knew they weren't true." "You risked your life," Maria said, her voice breaking. "When I think what could have happened." A knock at the door interrupted them. Detective Rivera entered, his arm still in a sling, followed by William Anderson and his assistant Margaret. "Ms. Clark," William said, moving carefully into the room with his cane. "I hope we're not intruding." "Not at all," Maria replied, straightening in her bed. "I've been wanting to thank you for helping find me." William shook his head. "I think the gratitude flows in the opposite direction. Without your daughter's courage, I would have lost everything, and Harrington would have gotten away with it." "The FBI has frozen all the accounts connected to the conspiracy," Rivera added. "Pembroke is cooperating, hoping for leniency. He's implicated Harrington and 3 other judges in a pattern of corruption going back years." What about Dr. Sanderson's death?" Maria asked. "They're reopening the investigation," Rivera confirmed. "Initial evidence suggests it was staged to look like suicide." William moved closer to the bed, guided by Margaret. "Miss Clark, I came here not just to thank you and Emma, but to make an offer." "An offer?" Maria echoed cautiously. "My foundation focuses on developing technologies for the visually impaired," William explained. "But this experience has shown me we need to expand our mission. I'd like to establish a new division focused on judicial accountability and transparency, and I'd like you to run it." Maria's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a custodian. I don't have any legal background." "You have something more valuable," William replied. "Integrity and first-hand experience with how the system can fail. The legal expertise can be hired, the moral compass can't." "It would mean a significant increase in salary," Margaret added, "and flexible hours so you can be there for Emma." Maria looked down at her daughter, who was watching her with bright, hopeful eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes, Mom," Emma urged. "You always say we should stand up for what's right. Now you can help lots of people do that." A smile slowly spread across Maria's face. "When you put it like that, how can I refuse?" 2 weeks later, the Anderson Foundation headquarters buzzed with activity. The fraudulent judgment had been vacated, Harrington and Pembroke were awaiting trial, and William's company was recovering from the ordeal. In William's office, he sat with James Donovan and Margaret, discussing the Foundation's new initiatives. "The Maria Clark Justice Project is already receiving cases," Margaret reported. "Dozens of people claiming similar patterns of judicial misconduct." "And our blindness research?" William asked. "Back on track," James confirmed. "With Pembroke's conspiracy exposed, the pharmaceutical industry is being extra careful about its ethics. Several companies have approached us about partnerships." William nodded, his fingers absently tracing the edge of the desk. "And Emma? How is she adjusting?" "Remarkably well," Margaret said. "Children are resilient. Maria says she's become something of a celebrity at school. The girl who caught a corrupt judge." "She deserves better than celebrity," William mused. "She deserves a future where her courage isn't needed to ensure justice." "That's what the Foundation will work toward," James reminded him. "Thanks to her, we have that chance." The intercom buzzed, and William's receptionist announced visitors. The door opened to reveal Maria and Emma, the latter carrying a large, colourful card. "Mr. Anderson?" Emma called out as she entered. "We brought you something." William turned toward her, voice smiling. "Did you? That's very thoughtful." Emma placed the card in his hands. "It's Braille. Mom helped me make it. The bumps spell out thank you." "Me." William's fingers moved across the card, feeling the carefully placed dots. "This is beautiful, Emma. Did you do all this yourself?" "Mum showed me how," Emma said proudly. "She says if I'm going to be your friend, I should learn how you read." "My friend," William repeated softly. I'd like that very much. I'd... 6 months after Judge Harrington's arrest, the grand jury indictments were announced in what the media had dubbed the blind justice case. 12 people were charged, including 3 judges, 2 prosecutors, and several executives from Pembroke Pharmaceuticals. William Anderson stood on the courthouse steps beside Maria Clark, both of them addressing a crowd of reporters. Today marks a victory not just for me personally, but for our justice system, William said, his voice strong and clear. The corruption that nearly destroyed my company and foundation has been exposed, and those responsible will face their own day in court. The Maria Clark Justice Project has already identified 17 similar cases across the country, Maria added. Ordinary citizens who were targeted by corrupt officials because they lacked the resources to fight back. Unlike me, William continued, many of these victims have already lost everything. Their homes, their businesses, their reputations. The Anderson Foundation is committing $50 million to help them rebuild their lives and clear their names. A reporter called out, Mr. Anderson, there are rumors that Lawrence Pembroke was specifically targeting your blindness research. Can you comment on that? William nodded gravely. Our investigation has confirmed that Pembroke sought to acquire and suppress our research because it threatened their profit model. They preferred to sell expensive treatments rather than allow us to develop a cure. And where does that research stand now? Another reporter asked. We've made significant breakthroughs, William replied, a smile spreading across his face. Clinical trials begin next month for a neural implant that may restore partial vision in cases like mine. If successful, it could help millions of people worldwide. And as the press conference concluded, Emma pushed through the crowd, now 8 years old, and wearing a new dress for the occasion. Detective Rivera, fully recovered from his gunshot wound, followed close behind. You did great, Mom, Emma exclaimed, hugging Maria tightly. We all did, Maria replied, including William and Rivera in her gaze. Rivera nodded toward the courthouse. Judge Thompson just signed off on the final expungements. Every case Harrington corrupted has been vacated. That's 127 lives changed, William said softly. 127 injustices corrected. And 1 corrupt judge going away for a very long time, Rivera added with satisfaction. Later that evening, William hosted a small gathering at his home. The core group that had exposed the conspiracy, William, Maria, Emma, Rivera, and the legal team, celebrated their victory quietly. In the quiet moment, William found himself alone with Emma in his study. She was examining his collection of tactile art, sculptures and raised relief paintings designed for the blind to appreciate. Do you like art, Emma? William asked, sensing her presence. I like making things, she replied. Mum says I'm creative. William smiled. You certainly are, creative and brave. Emma was quiet for a moment. Mr. Anderson, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you still sad about being blind? The directness of the question, delivered with a child's innocence, caught William off guard. He considered his answer carefully. Sometimes, he admitted, I miss seeing the sunset and colors and faces, but being blind has taught me to see in different ways, to hear what people mean, not just what they say. Without that skill, I might never have recognized the truth when you brought it to me. Emma seemed to consider this. So maybe it was supposed to happen, so you could stop the bad people? William chuckled softly. That's a very philosophical question. I don't know if things happen for a reason, but I do know we can find meaning in them afterward. I think you were supposed to meet me, Emma declared with the certainty only a child could possess. And I was supposed to help you, like in the storybooks where people find each other when they need help the most. Perhaps you're right, William said, touched by her perspective. And if so, I'm very grateful that the universe brought us together." From the doorway, Maria watched their conversation with a warm smile. 6 months ago, she'd been cleaning courtrooms at night, struggling to make ends meet. Now she led a foundation division, had a comfortable home, and most importantly, had found a community of people who valued truth as much as she did. "Mom!" Emma called, spotting her. "Mr. Anderson says I can help test the new computers for blind kids." "That sounds wonderful," Maria replied, entering the room. "But don't you have a science project to finish first?" Emma's face fell momentarily, then brightened. "Maybe my science project could be about helping blind kids. I could show how the computers work." William laughed. "She has your determination, Maria. And your inability to give up," Maria replied with a smile. "A formidable combination." 1 year to the day after Emma had first overheard Judge Harrington's corrupt conversation, the Anderson Foundation held a gala to celebrate the launch of its new vision restoration program. The grand ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel sparkled with lights and elegant decorations as donors, researchers, and beneficiaries gathered to mark the occasion. William Anderson, impeccably dressed in a tailored tuxedo, moved confidently through the crowd. Though still legally blind, he now wore specialized glasses connected to a small device at his waist, the neural interface system his company had developed, now in its second phase of clinical trials. "Can you really see with those?" Emma asked, resplendent in a blue dress and serving as his self-appointed guide for the evening. Now 8.5, she had appointed herself the Foundation's unofficial ambassador. "Not like you can," William explained, adjusting the glasses slightly. "I see shapes, light, movement, like looking through frosted glass. But it's more than I've seen in 6 years." "And it'll get better?" Emma persisted. William smiled down at her. "With each new version, the scientists tell me the next prototype might even let me distinguish faces." "Then you'll finally see what I look like," Emma said excitedly. "I already know what you look like," William replied gently. "Brave, kind, and very determined." Across the room, Maria Clark was deep in conversation with a senator who had taken interest in the Justice Project's work. In her elegant gown, with her hair swept up, she looked nothing like the exhausted custodian she had been a year ago. Yet she carried the same core of integrity that had first impressed William. "Ms. Clark's division has identified over 200 cases of potential judicial misconduct nationwide," Margaret explained to a group of donors. 37 judges are currently under investigation as a result. Detective Rivera, now Lieutenant Rivera, approached William with a champagne flute in hand. "Quite a change from last year," he observed. "Indeed," William agreed, "though I suspect you miss the excitement sometimes." Rivera chuckled. "Hardly. I've had enough excitement to last a career. The police commissioner sends his regrets, by the way. He's meeting with the FBI task force on judicial reform." "The task force Emma inspired," William noted. "Not bad for a second grader's work." "Third grader now," Emma corrected importantly, "and I got all A's on my report card." "Which reminds me," Rivera said, reaching into his jacket, "I have something for you." He handed Emma a small box. Inside was a junior police badge with her name engraved on it. "Honorary detective," Emma read, her eyes widening. "For real?" For real," Rivera confirmed. "The department voted unanimously. You're the youngest recipient in Westbrook history." Emma's face glowed with pride as she pinned the badge to her dress. "Wait till I show my friends at school." As the evening progressed, William took the stage to address the gathered crowd. The room fell silent as he adjusted the microphone. "1 year ago," he began, "I stood on the brink of losing everything I had built. My company, my foundation, my reputation, all of it nearly destroyed by corruption and greed. I was saved not by my wealth or connections, but by the courage of a 7-year-old girl who refused to stay silent when she witnessed an injustice." All eyes turned to Emma, who squirmed slightly under the attention, but sat up straighter. Emma Clark taught me that true vision has nothing to do with eyesight. William continued. It's about seeing right from wrong, truth from lies, and having the courage to act on that knowledge. Her example inspired the work we celebrate tonight, not just restoring physical sight, but restoring faith in our institutions and in each other. William gestured to the side of the stage, where a large display showed the Foundation's latest initiative, the Clarity Project, a comprehensive program combining vision restoration technology, judicial accountability work, and educational resources for children. With the successful prosecution of those who conspired against justice, we've recovered not only my personal assets, but an additional $300 million in fines and penalties. Every cent will fund the Clarity Project, ensuring that others have the chance to see the truth and act upon it, just as Emma did. Applause thundered through the ballroom. As William returned to his seat, guided by Margaret, Emma leaned over to whisper in his ear, "Was I really that brave?" William smiled. "Braver than anyone I've ever known." "I was scared, though," Emma admitted. "That's why it's called courage," William replied. "Being afraid, but doing the right thing anyway." After the gala, as they prepared to leave, Maria found William near the coat check. "The Senator wants to introduce the Justice Project's findings at the judicial oversight hearings next month," she told him. "It could lead to systemic reforms." William nodded. "You should testify. Your perspective is unique and powerful." "Me? In front of Congress?" Maria looked uncertain. "If your daughter can face down a corrupt judge in open court, I think you can handle a few senators," William said with a smile. Maria laughed softly. "You make a compelling point." She paused, then added more seriously, "Thank you, William, for everything." "I believe I'm still the one in your debt," he replied. As they walked toward the exit, Emma skipping ahead with her new badge gleaming, William reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them all together. A conspiracy born of greed had inadvertently created something remarkable, a new family forged through adversity and bound by a shared commitment to truth. 5 years later, 13-year-old Emma Clark stood nervously backstage at the National Science Fair Finals in Washington, D.C. Her project, Neural Interface Systems for the Visually Impaired, had advanced through regional and state competitions to reach the national level. "You're going to be amazing," Maria assured her, straightening Emma's collar. "You know this material better than anyone." "Better than the actual scientists who invented it?" Emma asked skeptically. "Different perspective," came William Anderson's voice as he joined them. At 52, he moved with the confidence of a man who had made peace with his limitations while refusing to be defined by them. "You understand it from the user's point of view." William now wore the 5th-generation neural interface glasses, sleeker and more advanced than the early prototype. With them, he could distinguish colors, read large print, and even recognize familiar faces. The technology had transformed the lives of thousands of visually impaired people worldwide. "Dr. Reynolds says I ask better questions than his graduate students," Emma admitted with a small smile. "Because you see connections they miss," William replied. "That's your gift, Emma. It always has been." A festival organizer approached. "Miss Clark, you're up in 5 minutes." Dan, as Emma made last-minute adjustments to her presentation materials, William turned to Maria. "Hard to believe it's been 5 years." "Sometimes it feels like yesterday," Maria said softly. "Other times, it seems like another lifetime." Indeed, their lives had transformed dramatically. Maria now directed the Justice Project full-time, having helped expose corrupt judicial practices in 27 states. William's foundation had expanded globally, with offices in 12 countries. And Emma had blossomed into a confident, passionate advocate for both technological innovation and ethical governance. Judge Harrington was serving a 20-year sentence for his crimes. Lawrence Pembroke, had received 15 years after cooperating with authorities. The Anderson case had sparked a national movement for judicial accountability, resulting in new oversight mechanisms and transparency requirements. "She reminds me more of you every day," William observed, nodding toward Emma. "Stubborn and headstrong?" Maria asked with a laugh. "Principled and uncompromising," William corrected, "but she has my curiosity about how things work." The announcement came for Emma to take the stage. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked out to face the judges and audience. "My journey with neural interface technology began when I was 7 years old," she started, her voice clear and steady. "When a man I now consider family lost his sight in an industrial accident and nearly lost everything else to corruption." The judges leaned forward, instantly engaged. "What began as a personal tragedy became a catalyst for innovation," Emma continued, activating the holographic display of the neural interface system. "This technology doesn't just restore vision. It represents what happens when we refuse to accept limitations, both physical and ethical." For the next 15 minutes, Emma guided the audience through the evolution of the technology, explaining complex concepts with remarkable clarity. She demonstrated the current capabilities, outlined future developments, and addressed ethical considerations with a maturity beyond her years. When she finished, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. The head judge, a renowned neuroscientist, asked the first question. "Miss Clark, your understanding of this technology is impressive. What do you see as its next frontier?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Integration with artificial intelligence to interpret visual data more effectively. Currently, users must learn to interpret what they're seeing. Future systems will adapt to how each user's brain processes visual information, creating a more intuitive experience." The questioning continued for 10 minutes, with Emma fielding increasingly technical inquiries with confidence. When she finally returned backstage, William and Maria were waiting with proud smiles. "You were magnificent," Maria said, embracing her. "Indeed," William agreed. "I suspect we're looking at this year's national champion." Emma blushed but couldn't hide her excitement. "The judges seemed impressed with the ethical framework we've developed." That was all you," William reminded her. "You insisted we build in safeguards against misuse from the beginning." 3 hours later, as the award ceremony began, Emma sat between William and Maria, nervously clasping their hands. Lieutenant Rivera had joined them, now Chief of Police Rivera, along with Margaret and members of William's research team. "And the National Science Fair champion for 2030 is..." The announcer paused dramatically. "Emma Clark, for neural interface systems for the visually impaired." The auditorium erupted in applause as Emma made her way back to the stage, stunned and elated. As she accepted the Crystal Trophy and Scholarship Prize, she gazed out at the audience, her eyes finding William and Maria. "This award belongs to everyone who believed that truth matters," she said into the microphone. "To my mother, who taught me to stand up for what's right. To William Anderson, who showed me that vision comes in many forms. And to everyone who refuses to look away when confronted with injustice." Later that evening, as they celebrated in a private dining room at their hotel, William raised a toast. "To Emma, whose courage at 7 changed all our lives, and whose brilliance at 13 promises to change many more. And to truth," Emma added, raising her sparkling cider, "which always finds a way to be heard, even through the smallest voice." And as glasses clinked around the table, William reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. A corrupt judge had sought to destroy him, but instead had inadvertently created a family bound not by blood, but by something stronger, a shared commitment to justice, innovation, and the simple power of speaking truth. The neural interface glasses allowed him to see Emma's face now, not perfectly, but enough to recognize the same determination he'd sensed in her voice 6 years ago when a small girl had stood up in a courtroom and changed everything. Sometimes, William thought, the clearest vision comes not through our eyes, but through our hearts, and through the courage of those who refuse to be silent when truth is at stake. "To the future," he said, raising his glass once more, "and to whatever adventures it holds for all of us." Emma beamed, the national champion medal gleaming against her collared shirt. "I already know what I want to do next," she announced. "And what's that?" Maria asked, though her knowing smile suggested she already had an idea. Emma's eyes sparkled with determination. "I want to become a judge," she declared, "a fair one." William laughed, a sound of pure joy. "I can think of nothing more fitting," he said, "or more needed." The circle was complete. The child who had exposed corruption in the courts would one day administer justice from the bench, with clear eyes, an open heart, and an unwavering commitment to truth. And William Anderson, once nearly destroyed by that same system, would be there every step of the way, guiding her journey with the wisdom that comes only from walking through darkness and emerging, against all odds, into light.